allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Supervisor Moore,
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Present.
Councilman Iacilli.
Here.
Councilman Pell.
Present.
Councilman Schiavone.
Present.
All right, I do have some walk-ons to add to the,
They're just add-ons that we do at the end, right?
Yeah.
just,
You don't have to,
you don't have to announce
Yeah,
it
they'll
right
get
now?
in.
Okay. All right.
On the agenda.
All right, let's get started with our draft review. It's going to be three public hearings, one for the, to consider the enforcement action at 188 West Neck Road, Tuckahoe, New York. Public hearing to consider establishing a sewer district known as the Riverside Sewer District in the hamlet of Riverside, and a public hearing for WQIP funding allocation for the wastewater treatment improvement project of the Riverside Sewage Treatment Plant Phase 1 from the Community Preservation Fund 20% Water Quality Improvement Project. All right, so let's go forward with the review of the resolutions. I believe you're first, Bill.
Town Board Resolution 2024-49, Home Rule Resolution to support of A period 01531/SO256 as related to the continued authorization of the trustee of the freeholders and Commonwealth of the Town of Southampton related with Ocean Beach and other regarded as set forth there.
We were going to get some advice from Jim Burke on this, right? He was going to call the assemblyman and the senator
Yeah,
about it.
he has something to say when I spoke to him yesterday on it.
He's not
Well,
here today.
there's some language change in the
Yeah,
statute.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't believe that was.
No, because the language is fine, because as history goes, it's, all you do is repeating the language from the original law of 1812, and even if you don't support this, the law still stays in effect, and the law stays in effect right now. Basically, all this does is makes the town board and the trustees working together, and helps to support them if they have to go to court to protect the access to the beach and Mecox and other, and SAG.
And gives the trustees the power to make rules, orders, bylaws, and management of the property and franchise of the town.
They already have that.
That's the,
That, Tommy
Yeah.
John, they already have that. If you went back and looked, they have it, okay? I know you're not for this, you're not, because you don't want to give up the power, but they have, you have to look at the big picture.
Well,
well, I certainly don't want to debate it here, but that is a
That's-
concern of the town.
Yeah,
But
it
if I was
doesn't
the
concern me.
trustees, I'd be more I'd be more upset that that this is now a new law on the state that says the villages are not subject to
Yeah.
that law.
Right, but we are. It doesn't,
It's all the same
I don't
people.
understand the need for
Yeah,
it, but
it's all the same people.
so
We
when
work for the
is
same
Jim going to
people.
report back to
I
us?
spoke with him briefly, and I can talk to you about this additionally after. I think his feeling was that absent a meeting with either the Assembly or Senate members, that we could just tweak some of the whereas and everyone would be okay.
But he didn't provide us with the tweaks yet?
No, he's trying to find the words that
Yeah.
will make everybody
And that's
happy.
a complete opposite than what he told me yesterday on the phone.
I just spoke to him
So
5
he
minutes
has
ago.
to come here
Well-
and
Okay, so
say,
then you
because
In
he
as
tells
much
you
as the-
one thing and he tells me another thing.
Okay, all right, so he'll
so
address
in as
that
much
with you,
as
I'm
the
sure.
trustees would not want to give up their jurisdiction because of the Dungan patent and the colonial patent that they revere, as they should, the town board also has the same obligation. We did take an oath,
Yes, we all did.
yes.
We all work for the same people.
All right, well, let's hear from Jim as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yes.
And Town Board Resolution 2024-410, memorializing a resolution requesting an amendment to Section 384-DM of the New York State Retirement and Social Security Law pertaining to the town of Southampton as it relates to mandatory retirement age for the rank of chief in the town of Southampton Police Department. So we are going to be discussing this in executive session, so let's just leave it on and we can table it later, or, however we're going to proceed.
Town Board Resolution ID 45975, authorized purchase of asphalt and bituminous materials used by Suffolk County contracts. Town Board Resolution ID 46012, authorized purchase of snow plow and spreader parts and parts for labor to repair heavy equipment from tourists using Town of Brookhaven contracts.
Town Board Resolution ID 46002, co-sponsored by Councilman Schiavone, authorized purchases of maintenance and repair of lifts and jacks from PMT forklift using Suffolk County contract.
Town Board Resolution ID 46000, authorized purchase of commodic American used by Sourcewell contracts.
Town Board Resolution ID number 45976, to authorize the purchase of general building maintenance services involving new construction, reconstruction, and demolition from Renew Contracting and Restoration, Inc., using the Bay Shore UFSD contract. And Town Board Resolution ID number 46001, to authorize purchases of artificial turf using Suffolk County contract with the Land Tech Group, Inc. and Laser Industries, Inc.
Town Board Resolution 45960, authorizing the purchase of a 2024 Ford Transit XL from DeLacy Ford, Inc.
Town Board Resolution 46040, authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with SourcePass Contemporary LLC to provide engineering support services to assist the town with connectivity and security to outside agencies to support software migration.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46028, to authorize a change order for the electrical portion of the Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Facility with Commander Electric.
Sunday, I'd like to co-sponsor that, please.
Okay.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46026, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, to authorize the supervisor to sign an amended contract with H2M Architects Engineers Land Surveying for professional services related to improvements to the building department entrance.
Town Board Resolution 45997, authorizing the supervisor to sign DPP with Toshiba American Business Solutions, Inc. for copy machines from Eastern Suffolk Bose's contract.
Town Board Resolution 45996, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell, authorize relocation of water quality improvement funding from Flying Point Comfort Station to Hot Dog Beach Comfort Station. Town Board Resolution 46080, also co-sponsored, well, not also, but co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamara, authorize a supplemental funding of WQIP for Alwide Creek Stormwater Restoration Project related to field conditions encountered during construction.
Can I actually be a co-sponsor to that resolution?
Myself too, please. You want to do it too? That we have the whole board.
Oh, full board.
The whole board's going to do it.
Gotcha.
Make it easier.
Okay.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46027, to authorize the supervisor to execute an amended contract with Hirsch and Company for the plumbing portion of the Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Facility.
Sunday, I'd like to co-sponsor.
Okay.
Thank you. Town Board Resolution 46067, authorize the supervisor to execute any and all documents relating to an agreement with Telview Corporation to upgrade software and broadcast equipment for Southampton Channels 20 and 22. Town Board Resolution 46025, co-sponsored with Councilman Uselli, authorize the supervisor to sign a no-cost contract extension for the Reeves Bay Catwalk and Barn Restoration with Chesterfield Associates Incorporated.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46004 to authorize the supervisor to sign a sole source contract with Mayday Communications, Inc. for Verint Systems, Inc. for the Police Department. Town Board Resolution ID number 45987 to award and authorize the supervisor to sign contract with Gershow Recycling for the removal of abandoned junk and decommissioned vehicles. Town Board Resolution ID number 45979 to declare items surplus and authorize the disposal of vehicles and equipment.
Town Board Resolution ID 46024, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, recall and amend Resolution Number 2023-105, authorize supervisor to sign DPP with Toshiba America Business Solutions, Inc. for copy machines from Eastern Suffolk BOCES contract.
Town Board Resolution ID 46029, recall and amend Resolution 2024-378, authorize the supervisor to execute a extended agreement with L.K. McLean Associate PC for on-call engineer service to be provided to the Highway Department for various town-wide projects.
I'd like to co-sponsor that.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46090, authorizing the supervisor to execute an extended contract with First Coastal Corporation as it relates to professional services for the Fire Island Inlet to Montauk Point project.
Town Board Resolution,
I'd like to also co-sponsor that, Madam Clerk. A very important project.
So would I.
I think I would like to do it too.
Yeah, we'll add the whole board.
Add the whole town board.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Sand on the beach.
Town Board Resolution ID 45967, 2024, notice to bidders for, apply for crack sealing. That's for the roads.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46015, 2024, notice to bidders for liquid propane gas. Okay. Town Board Resolution ID number 46052, to amend the 2024-2028 capital budget for park improvement projects.
Could we go through those just briefly?
Yeah, it says the cost of the basketball court came in under budget and the cost of the turf field was over budget. So it's
And that's at Red Creek Park.
Hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution ID number 45998, repealing the prior bond resolution. My name is on this for administrative purposes, but I want to make sure that the full board, this is a full board decision.
Yeah, I'd like to co-sponsor.
Yeah, I'd
Myself
like to
too.
co-sponsor too.
Add me as well.
Whole board.
Thank you.
And then Town Board Resolution ID number 46049, to authorize closure of capital project Shinnecock LTD Access Road.
And same thing, I'd like to co-sponsor.
Ditto.
Add the board.
Yeah, the whole board,
Full board.
please.
Full board.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46054, to authorize the closure of capital projects.
Is this an omnibus?
Yes.
And Town Board Resolution ID number 45971, authorize the town to reimburse New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal the deductible for bodily injury and property damage claims. And Town Board Resolution ID number 45995, to recall and amend Resolution 2024-296, to retain Sokolov Stern LLP to represent the interests of the town as it relates to a litigation matter entitled Wexler et al. Versus the town of Southampton.
Bill, you're the lead on that.
Yeah. 45872, Town Board Resolution. Town Resolution Enforcement Act on 188 West Neck Road, Tuckahoe, New York, tax map 900-111-2.
And you're having, that's the subject of the first public hearing offer that evening.
Yes, and that's the whole board.
There's a number missing on the title, -10. There's only 3 numbers.
Okay.
3 numbers.
We'll amend that. Thank you
Yep,
for
thank you.
catching that, Janice.
Town Board Resolution ID 46006, co-sponsored Councilman Iacilli, authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Friends of the Hampton Bays Library Spring Festival to be held on May 11th, 2024. Town Board Resolution ID 46014, co-sponsored with Councilman Iacilli, authorization of a cost reimbursement waiver for the East Quogue Elementary School Robert J. Long Jr. 5K run walk on May 18th, 2024, from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Are you gonna go?
Exciting. It's a great event. It's a great cause.
I'll go with you then.
I'll go.
About that spring festival, I wonder.
That too.
Yeah.
Actually, I won't be here. I'll be on my way up to the Adirondacks to drop my daughter off.
Okay. So, Town Board Resolution ID number 45986 to authorize the sale of .5 town-owned fractional pine bearing credit. Co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone. Not familiar with this one. What's that for?
This individual needs pine barrens credits in other parts of the town, so we have them to, for sale, and they purchase it and extinguish it, and the monies go into our community preservation fund.
This was a purchase that was done over a decade ago in terms of some land swap issues and money that's going back into the CPF fund.
No, thank you.
That's how
Good
we
to know.
acquired them initially, right, Counselor?
Yes.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46009 to accept a maintenance bond in connection with the site plan of the Noyak Golf Club.
Miss-
Town-
Missing with, connection with, just
Oh, yes.
FYI.
Madam Clerk, could you add the word "with" after connection? We can put it in there. Town Board Resolution ID number 46039, resolution to accept demolition bond in connection with the demolition of an existing dwelling located at 166 Sabonic Road, Tuckahoe. And Town Board Resolution ID number 46083 to authorize the waiver of a wetland permit fee for the Grace Presbyterian Church. Town Board Resolution ID number 46022 to appoint Anka Halagita to the office assistant, to office assistant Spanish speaking in the comptroller's office. Town Board Resolution ID number 46021 to appoint Melanie Santisteban to the Justice Court clerk in Justice Court. And Town Board Resolution ID number 46034 to appoint Nicole Segroy to Administrative Assistant in Land Management.
Sunday, I'd like to co-sponsor.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46020 to appoint Scott Demain to Custodial Worker 1 in Municipal Works. Town Board Resolution ID number 46046 to appoint Timothy Wilson to Maintenance Mechanic 3 position in the trustees.
I'd like to co-sponsor that too, please.
And Town Board Resolution ID number 46019 to appoint Torrance Langhorn to Sanitation Helper position in Municipal Works Waste Management Division.
Town Board Resolution 46077, NOPH to amend Channel 312-12 to authorize to addition stop signs at the head of Pond Road and Lower Seven Pond Road.
There's two amendments that need to be made to this. On the first, be it resolved, April 23rd, 2024, it should be 6 PM, not 1 PM, and that same correction in the notice of public hearing?
Yes, I have the corrections, and
Yeah.
it goes for the next resolution as
Yes,
well.
okay, good.
I would also suggest that NOPH be spelled.
Yes, I agree. And the chapter, so it doesn't look like channel.
Hold on.
Yeah.
NOPH
notice of public
Public
Oh,
hearing.
okay, I didn't even know what it meant.
Neither. I
And
was
the
like,
CH should say
That's a
chapter.
new one, I haven't seen that
yeah.
before.
Sunday.
I was gonna wonder why the TV was,
Sunday.
About the stop signs,
Does
or
she
is
have
that
the
just something
CH?
Tom recommended?
The CH should be chapter. Not-
Acronyms for everything here.
Oh, and
CH?
should be spelled out also, chapter, like Christina.
yeah. So we know, people know what it is for. 10 Board Resolution 46078. Same thing, that should be fixed too. NOPH to amend Chapter 312-7, authorize 2 addition stop sign at Mill Road and South Country Road, created an all-way stop.
Is that by the Remsenburg Elementary School? Is that one?
I think so. So you have to fix that one too.
Yes, and the times as well.
And the times in both locations.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of public hearings that are getting scheduled for one meeting.
Town Board Resolution 46079, a notice of public hearing for the Water Quality Improvement Project requested by the Town of Southampton Municipal Works Department for the Town Hall sanitary system upgrade.
This is very important, like the,
Big decision.
You were on it. Oh,
I know.
co-sponsor with Councilman Pell.
I don't know if we should
Apologies.
break it up.
I don't think any of these are controversial.
Town Board Resolution 46081, a notice of public hearing on the acquisition of 109 Montauk Highway in the hamlet of West Hampton to amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include property.
A lot of public hearings.
Yeah, let's tally them up at the end, Cindy, and then see if we want to change the dates on them.
Town Board Resolution 46082, co-sponsor with Councilman Yaselli, a notice of public hearing on the acquisition of a historic preservation and conservation easement on property located at 29 Dock Road in the hamlet of Eastport, and amend the Community Preservation Project Plan and CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include said property.
There's also an amendment on that second page with the hearing time as well, and the notice of public hearing.
I'm sorry, can you,
The notice of public hearing portion of that should, in bold, should say 6 o'clock. not
6
I have
instead of
that.
1, right? Okay.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46023, notice of public hearing to consider repealing the existing Town Code, Chapter 23, Code of Ethics, and replace it in its entirety with a new Town Code, Chapter 23, Code of Ethics.
I'd like to co-sponsor.
okay, I'm sorry, I'm just going back to correct the other ones. Which one are you on now?
The ethics one.
Page 57.
57.
Okay, 46023.
023.
Okay, so I'm adding Cindy McNamara?
You could also add me as well.
myself too.
Full board.
Please.
John
All right.
wants
Yes.
to do it.
Add me. Thank you.
On board, okay, got it.
Oh, yeah.
Town Board Resolution ID 45978, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, notice of public hearing to accept deed of open space in connection with old filed map development section map of Ocean View Park, map number 105, section 4 in Watermill. These are like housekeeping public hearings, and I am, liaison to Land Management Department, but I'm happy to, Councilman Schiavone, if you want to be the lead sponsor on this, I'm fine with that.
So watermill is 2 words.
Wow, who's writing all of these?
Okay. Would you repeat that?
I said it's a matter of housekeeping, and as also a liaison to land management, I know I'm on here, I'm happy to use your liaison to planning to let you, if you want to be lead sponsor, that's fine.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know who did research, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's
Thank
here.
you. You're on this one now? The Hampton Bays.
No, I'm not. No.
You ready, Madam Clerk, for us to continue?
I just.
You're gonna make
They're gonna
Councilman
switch.
Schiavone the lead
Oh,
sponsor.
45978.
It's just hard for me to hear.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
4, 5, 9, 7, 8. So Councilman Scavone is going to be the lead, so I'm just going to switch these names in the order.
Yes, please.
Is that what I'm doing? Okay,
Thank you.
got it. Thank you.
Town Board Resolution ID number 45919, co-sponsored by council members McNamara, Iacilli, and Pell, for a resolution terminating the Hampton Bays waterfront revitalization urban renewal plan as it relates to the property located at 20 Shinnecock Road, Hampton Bays. And I'm going to read the walk-on. Does everybody have the walk-on?
Yes.
Town Board Resolution ID number 46073, resolution to accept and file a notice of completion for the supplemental final generic environmental impact statement in connection with the siting and construction of a community sewage treatment plant and associated collection and conveyance system in the hamlet of Riverside.
I'd like to co-sponsor, Cindy.
Me as well?
Myself as well?
You can put the whole board.
Okay.
And are we looking to, I know we probably have to look into this, but are we looking to close this? This one for the next?
This is
Mhm.
just to accept, is it not?
Yes.
So it has, you're gonna accept it, and then it's a 10-day
Okay.
window in
Got it.
order to then
Kathleen.
thereafter do the finding statement and decision.
Kathleen said she'll provide us with a timeline,
Okay.
a revised timeline.
Great.
Town Board Resolution ID 46091, award and authorize supervisor to sign contract with Chesterfield Associates, Inc. for Hot Dog Beach sanitary system. This is very, very much looked forward to by the community.
Well, what was in the agenda about Hot Dog Beach already?
There were two in there that,
Yeah.
that amend the capital project and put the bonding in place to do that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll co-sponsor that one. That sounds like a good one.
Myself too.
And Town Board Resolution ID number 46092, to authorize the supervisor to execute an extended agreement with LK McLean Associates PC as it relates to professional services for the Fire Island to Montauk project.
I will co-sponsor that, Madam Clerk.
I will too.
Had me as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You please excuse me for 1 minute. I left my Hampton Bays file in my office.
No worries.
Good intentions. Okay, I just want to be clear, on the walk-on, on the add-ons, number 2, I've added Maria, the supervisor, and Councilman Pell. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
And for the record, I'll be voting yes. But when the time comes.
Lot going on
Yeah,
over
yeah.
there.
Today, we're going to next hear from Historical Concepts, an update on community meetings. And with us is Janice Shear, our Town Planning and Development Administrator, Elizabeth Dillon from Historical Concepts, and Paul Knight, attending via Zoom from Historical Concepts.
Hi, we're just trying to get Paul Knight on there.
And of course, Frank Zapone, and he also has our
Yeah,
survey
well,
results.
This survey is really in response to the initial historic concepts, conceptual drawing. So in discussing this with Janice, it's probably best to combine the two, since the purpose here is to provide historical concepts with some input from the community and see how that impacts the next iteration of their conceptual design. So, I think you have a copy of the survey results. I want to distribute to you a slightly different or corrected cover sheet, which is just statistical information because the one you have has a typographical error in it. And then just to give you a little bit of context. I think I gave you enough.
Do we want to do that after bid? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not sure how you want to
Yeah,
do it.
I think it's probably better to do it and then lead up to that.
Since we-
There's, I was just gonna say, Jen shared the results with us, and we did a little bit of our own, a summary of kind of our
That- I-
takeaways that I can
no,
share as well, if that's
I'm
complimentary. to what you
necessary for the occasion, but not expected to do very much, so it's up to you. And
Why
the
don't we
board,
hand
of
that out
course.
as well, just so that the board has it, so we're all having the same
Thank you.
information.
Thank you.
Does Sunday need to approve this?
Do you want to
before-
just
You
pass
need
down
to
the
print-
stamp?
stamp these in.
Yes.
Are we handing from the wrong direction?
This is a work session, right?
It is,
So
but we
we're-
stamp
Oh,
copies,
okay.
yeah. We usually probably put the stamp on them.
We'll give them right back.
Sometimes you're not here anymore when we hand things out in work sessions.
You know, and because I
So we should
give
leave
all
on-
the
leave your
departments
stamps.
copy stamps, and they're supposed to stamp them prior to coming.
I
need to
usually
give
do,
more.
I'm sorry.
That's, I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying how, that's why these don't happen, because it came from outside.
I have a lot of these. Can everyone get one?
Oh, no, yeah, we
That's
need,
the
we need
Extraordinary
those.
impact on records.
I don't have one
management.
either.
Thank you so much.
Paul, can you hear us?
Do you have one?
I've got one.
There's more coming.
Let me see that.
Yeah, it's just, there's error on that.
That's
Can I look at the arrow?
Right. That first is a new cover page.
Do
and
you have
this is-
anything else you'd like me to stamp?
What was the, Frank, what was the difference between the two?
Different.
In what respects?
Like, what's the difference? Why is this replacing that?
It's not
Well,
replacing,
that's
it.
the
They did one
entire-
and they did one, so we're just giving you.
No,
Frank
Oh,
handed out
I'm
a new
sorry.
cover.
I thought you meant this
On
one.
the back page, there were a couple of spelling errors,
Oh, okay.
and they were corrected.
But the info is still the same.
Yeah, it was,
Thank you.
Thank you for correcting stuff.
I know a couple of people wrote to the board to say, you know, why are you even doing this new survey, right? You got something like that too, and, I think it came out of a CAC meeting, no, a civic meeting that we were at, and we had something, and people were saying, can you give us more formalized, survey, so we
And we'll go cover that.
prepared one.
So,
Yeah.
thank you for having us this morning, and Elizabeth will lead the discussion, just in terms of what you tasked Historical Concepts to do, or actually it was really the previous board, and then we updated sort of in the beginning of the year, and then what they went and did, and now what the next steps may be, so, and to get some next steps. So thank you, Elizabeth, and Paul is here
Thank
on
you.
Zoom.
Yep, so Paul's on Zoom, and we've, Paul Knight,
Hi,
my
Paul.
colleague, is on Zoom, and he has the PowerPoint presentation that he will share. I'm Elizabeth Dillon, Principal of Historical Concepts. I brought a couple of printed copies, not enough for everybody, but there are a couple of printed copies, if it's easier for you to look
Great.
at that. You know, I'll say a lot of what's in here you have seen before, so we're gonna go through it quickly, so don't let the number of pages daunt you here.
It's always helpful to see it again.
So, you know, starting off just with really a refresher of our role in this, you know, Historical Concepts was first engaged back in October 2016 to help the town do some public outreach, build some consensus, and write a pattern book, which we delivered to the town in 2017. You know, we had done public outreach for that process and got, you know, really overwhelmingly positive feedback from the residents ahead of that pattern book. I think we all know since, sorry, my voice, get over a cold here. But I think we all know there have been some challenges since that pattern book was published. And so the next page has kind of our re-engagement. The previous town board asked us to become back involved at the end of 2022. And really, you know, we were tasked with conceptual visioning services to develop a graphic, you know, a visual representation of what redevelopment of Hampton Bays might look like if it happened in accordance with the guidance of the pattern book that we had authored. So it was really trying to go back and recapture that public input in the work that was done previously And, you know, in the previous iteration, we had not done kind of a rendering or, you know, an actual ground representation of what buildings or streets would look like in accordance with the pattern book.
Can I
And
ask you
so
a
this is
question?
what that was.
So this was done in 2017.
So the pattern book was, the previous version was delivered at the end of 2017.
And it was updated for now?
You're getting ahead of me.
Okay, sorry.
So when we were re-engaged in '22, we pulled back out all of our data gathering from the previous effort. You know, we listened to the notes that Town Supervisor Schneiderman shared with us from the listening sessions that he had been conducting. We took feedback from Janice and the planning department, and we, you know, took a stab at what development might look like in Hampton Bays. It was really not intended to be a specific master plan that we were proposing, and we didn't do, you know, visual renderings for the entire downtown area. We really looked at the GIS plats and identified, with the help of the planning department, a selection of parcels that were open or under common ownership, so they seemed like they were more available for redevelopment in the short term. So that was how we focused our study area, really just where there was kind of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, something that was more likely to be redeveloped in the near-term future. And we developed a series of graphics showing what development might look like in those areas. You know, so the next couple of slides here, so we developed that initial concept, came back to the town board, we took it to the community, so we had a meeting that was hosted by the Chamber of Commerce in early January, that was well attended. We did a Zoom meeting with the CAC in the middle of January, and at the end of January, we presented at a civic meeting that was very well attended. I think, you know, we had not anticipated the turnout, and so I think we had heard at the last minute that it sounded like there were going to be a lot more attendees than we had initially anticipated, and the agenda, we had not really planned for additional time for workout sessions in the meeting, and so we are concerned that if there were 100 people there, they might not have the opportunity to ask questions, you know, within the allotted time. And so we had done a little handout with just the renderings, and on the back, you know, just a form that was not intended to be a scientific survey. It was really just if people wanted to leave questions but didn't have a chance to speak. And so I think that initiated questions from the residents, you know, that it seemed like we had not had enough handouts for everybody. And so I think we received questions at that point of, you know, some people didn't have the opportunity to fill one of those out but wanted to. And so I think that was what triggered this second survey here, or third or fourth, depending on how you look at it. So that is the high level, you know, process. So where we are right now, we are presenting back findings, you know, what we heard from the series of meetings, the feedback we received. So we're here down at the bottom of the second page, you know, reviewing concept and surveys with the town board. And then really the final piece that's left on the scope of work that we've been contracted for is to deliver the revised pattern book. You know, we contemplated minor revisions. I think everything we've heard, the general content still holds. You know, there are some more focused revisions, and I'll get into those momentarily, that we intend to deliver to y'all next month. The next few slides we can flip through very quickly, but this is just a reminder of what we had done back, you know, the legwork that we had done. In the initial pattern book, we had done an extensive precedent tour. You know, we had looked at kind of the physical properties of communities up and down Long Island that were of a similar time period or physical form to Hampton Bays, of how buildings address the main street, the frequency of buildings, you know, really building a set of data that we could reference. And then we held community outreach. You know, we had a public meeting where we had breakout sessions, and we reviewed images with the residents and received feedback on what they wanted the future development to look like. We then did an online survey that was kind of the virtual counterpoint to that in-person meeting, received over 1,200 responses. The overwhelming directive that we heard from the residents was that they wanted 93% wanted a vibrant, walkable, mixed-use downtown area. That was kind of the takeaway that we had then launched into developing the pattern book. When we were re-engaged in 2022, we pulled out all those notes, and then the next thing we did was look at, all right now in Hampton Bays, under the current zoning, since the zoning overlay was struck down, what sort of development would be allowed? We had done 3 case studies looking at what would be allowed under current zoning. We developed those with our interpretation of the code, guidance with Janice here, of possibilities of what might be developed on these parcels that we had identified as more likely to be developed or redeveloped in the short term because of the common ownership and the amount of open land. And we presented those to the previous town board, and really the big takeaway was that the current zoning and the development that it would allow was not consistent with what we had previously heard from the residents. It was overwhelmingly, more larger aggregated boxes of buildings surrounded by parking. It would not lead to the creation of that kind of vibrant, walkable streetscape that the residents had asked for.
Or in one of the scenarios, there was smaller versions, but those are things that people weren't necessarily
Yeah, so I
going to
think
take the risk on developing because they
The
aren't
scenario 2
going
and 3 were the
to.
smaller scattered boxes,
Yeah.
but, are not as likely to be developed given today's economic climate. It's just not as attractive for a developer to build. So unfortunately not likely to actually be realized.
So if the zoning limited the buildings to very small, in your opinion, with those buildings, you're saying that they would not likely be built, and that's why we don't see any activity between Main Street and the park. And the whole point is to come up with some collective idea of what
Yeah, so that
you
was
want to see or what we're heading toward.
You don't end up with a box store.
And we don't want, there's nuances to the code. You could definitely probably get a 40,000 square foot supermarket if that's what, if somebody wanted to propose. That is allowed in VB. Those kinds of things could happen, There's, the idea here is what's really viable for someone to take the risk and invest and build is maybe not the thing that we've been talking about all along. So that was the point of the visual, because there was a lot of misinterpretation about what we were talking about all along. So we had them draw it on paper. Is this what we're talking about? And if this isn't it, then what is it?
Well,
And,
I have a question. Somebody wrote to me and said about the big box that we were saying as of right, somebody could put in, you just said like 40,000 square feet. Sorry. And they wrote to me that the minimum in the VB district, the maximum is 5,000 square feet per use. Uses between 5,000 square feet and 15,000 square feet may be permitted only by special exception, but it looks like you couldn't exceed the 15,000, so I wasn't sure how to respond to that, so I was hoping you could explain what's the distinction there between 15,000 max and what we're saying today is the 40,000.
There's some nuance there in that there is something called a Hamlet Retail Center, and those things would be a special exception, and the criteria to receive that special exception is related to its proximity to downtown. Here, you're in the middle of downtown, so we can't see why that wouldn't be something that would be permitted. So, special exception means you may be permitted that use if you meet the criteria. When you look at those criteria, it's pretty clear that why would we not have a Hamlet Retail Center in the downtown? So,
But does the code say that the max is 15,000 square feet? 'Cause
you have to have a Hamlet Commercial Retail Center or something. It's called like Hamlet Commercial, and Hamlet Retail Center is the special exception code that allows the 5 per use, 15 per special exception. And can those uses be aggregated? Probably.
And where is that decision made? Planning board?
Yes. So,
So you're saying
but the point is,
as of right,
if we can
it
get
would-
into the absolute nuance of all the little codes and sit here and go, this isn't actually permitted as of right, so,
Well, I just
we
wanna-
can
I wanna
only
be
have
res-
5,000. I'm
Excuse
trying
me,
to.
I just want to be responsive to the community
100%.
because they've raised it a couple of times. And I want to be clear. So the code maxes out at 15,000 per square feet, but the applicant could go to the planning board, you're saying, and maybe get
So that's
an
under
exception
one
to
type of use.
consolidate
The
them?
consolidation is a retail hamlet center, and that would be the, 15,000. If you proposed a grocery store, it's 40,000. It's
Mhm.
not 15.
right, but wouldn't be allowed under the current
It
code?
is.
Did we-
40,000 in VB is allowed today.
Okay,
So one of
that's-
these big boxes that look big.
That's where the disconnect is, because it looks like the code says it's maxed at 15,000, and you're saying you could put a 40,000.
That's
confusing.
for a
square
different
foot,
type
yeah.
of use.
Yeah.
So that's about
It's
a different
confusing for the
kind
people
of.
when they look at it.
It is
So
confusing.
how could we explain it better? To make it clear that the code does allow for a 40,000 square foot.
We could show the use table that says it.
I think most people don't want a 40,000 square foot building there.
No, they don't.
No.
Right. So, or, there's other ways around things that we know of, that people know of, that
Yeah.
developers know of. So we're trying to say, this is the worst case scenario, if
Okay.
someone availed themselves to these types of things. So maybe, the as of right nuance is the terminology is not necessarily so. But there's a case to be made that someone could make to walk in the door to the planning board and say, I want to develop it like this.
We see it all the time, and
And
people come in and they're upset that
and
something's
people are
allowed, they
upset.
don't think should be allowed,
Right.
but it's allowed.
But we're trying to be proactive here and say, if these are possibilities, and all of this is possibility, none of this is set in stone. There's possibilities, there's things that are proposed and struck down, there's things that are proposed and approved. So these are all various possible outcomes, and so we can say, okay, well, this is wrong, and we shouldn't be talking about a possible outcome that isn't really possible, or we can say.
Well, we don't want to lose credibility and say, this is, something bad could happen.
I mean, I don't
you
want to
know,
lay
and
out
then
someone
not
else's
have it.
argument on how to do this either.
No, I don't want to
But
do
I
that
do
either.
know that this is potentially possible. So it's a tricky position to be in, because if I lay out to you exactly how to accomplish this, that then could be, someone walks into the planning board and goes, I want to do this.
And I think
So
as Janice
there's a
was
little bit
alluding
of
to,
that.
Kind of our big takeaway was, what is probably most attractive to developers who might come in and redevelop these parcels, would be the bigger box, that kind of scenario one that Janice was alluding to, aggregating the smaller parcels, or the larger grocery store, tenant under BB. But I think we've heard very clearly from the residents that this is not what they want, and so I
Yeah.
think that's part of why it has not happened.
Mhm.
The other scenarios under current zoning are, kind of the 2 and 3 are the smaller boxes, but I think the big takeaway was this has not happened. These parcels are sitting there ripe for redevelopment right now, but nobody has done this, because it is not financially attractive to a developer. It is a difficult process for a small return essentially here. And so, nobody has come in to develop this. So I think that was the big takeaway, that, these are the easier paths under current zoning, but even they aren't happening. And so what could we collectively, HC supporting the town, do to encourage the revitalization of downtown Hampton Bays in a way that's consistent with what the residents want?
Right.
We really wanted to ensure investment and revitalization of the current downtown to ensure that it remains vibrant for, years to come. I think right now the residents had self-identified that they have seen, disinvestment or a lack of investment, in downtown. They haven't seen kind of the new energy or, new storefronts or redoing storefronts that they would like to see.
And so if you want, this revised, this is somehow disingenuous, we can change it to lay it out more clearly. But the point is just a visual. The point was a visual exercise, not to, necessarily, go to court over like a conceptual notion of, well, what could be? And what do you want?
So the point of,
If one of these, scenario 2, scenario 3 was like, no, we want this.
Janice,
then,
the point of this particular page, the as-of-right development of what is permitted today, is to set forward to the public and to us, for our knowledge, of what exactly the zoning allows for and
Right.
what has been proposed previously, correct?
Well, I don't know about what has been proposed previously, but definitely sort of, hey, there's multiple scenarios. There's not only 3 scenarios. There's there's
I mean, you can have
unlimited.
medical offices.
There's
have-
unlimited scenarios, and we could do this all day long.
So, and so that therefore, the follow-up, all of the work that we've been doing since then is to sort of shift gears to try to find something that is more accommodating to what the public has been speaking out about.
Right.
Okay.
Or into nature, into the natural of the Hampton Bays.
Sure. The point was just to give some more visual representation, not to scare anyone, not to be disingenuous, just to give a better idea, because the board was saying, well, what, and we were saying previously, what is allowed under VB now is not necessarily going to be built. And we're here with a,
We have to put some.
decaying sort of downtown that no vibrancy is
Yeah.
happening, and it hasn't happened for many, many years. So why not? Because the zoning doesn't allow for it.
And just to be clear here, we're tasked with the overall zoning, which is basically allowing the layout. Because I think people are taking this to the extreme of what shops and businesses that they want, and that's the free market, that's not us.
Right.
We're here to make those options that they would like to see a more feasible option and a more economically.
However, but just to, sort of supporting that, but adding on a bit, the pattern book is, in a way, attracting the type of market forces, business forces, or housing that would sort of be in the character of the community, so it wouldn't be so outside the scope of what the community wants to see.
Right, so you
And also
typically
with
get a
the-
lot of franchise architecture. So people have their certain thing, like let's use AutoZone, for example, their AutoZone. And the AutoZone here is the same as AutoZone anywhere, right? And
Yeah.
so they just want to be what they've designed to be their corporate franchise look. When you have a pattern book and design standards, you're saying, we don't want the Anyplace USA
Right.
AutoZone. We want the Hampton Bays AutoZone. And so you have to make it look like this. And that's what the pattern book
Fits in.
does. It gives you a little more design standard, and so if a ARB were to say, we don't like it, you can't just say you don't like it. You need some standards, otherwise it's arbitrary. So we need to put it up against something, and so that's what the pattern book does. It gives you that understanding of the context and the ability to say, does this meet the, what we're aiming for, or is it totally not what we're talking about? And that's how you base your decisions on a record and that on some standards.
I think you're exactly right, that, we have been trying to build consensus, as Janice mentioned, generated graphics so we could go to the residents and say, is this the sort of development that you want? Is this what you mean when you say a vibrant, mixed use, walkable downtown? So that then the town board had a clear directive, to figure out how do we enable that sort of development in Hampton Bays. And so I think, as you were alluding to, having that graphic picture takes some of the guesswork out of it for developers. It gives them a clearer path forward that this is what the residents want.
Right.
If I propose something that is consistent with that character, that is consistent with the pattern book, then I have a pretty good chance of getting it through. It gives them a little bit more predictability in the process.
And also prevents them from coming in and wanting a big box store.
Yeah.
That's
And if
what's
they
really
do come in with a
important.
big box store, then you have something to point to if this is not what the residents
Yeah.
want.
Because then the resident's gonna get up and say, hey, I don't want a 40,000 square
Yeah.
foot Costco or something.
So
Right,
we
and that's-
generated a
If-
tool that you all could use to help
So
guide
the
right
pattern
content.
book, in essence, if we get it right, can be sort of what protects the community and their interests of what goes there, is what you're saying.
To some degree, and also, but it also, there's a revitalization aspect to this where
Yeah.
it provides people who are investing in this community some sense of what you're looking for. So they can do a pro forma and say, well, they're gonna want, a building clad in this kind of material, and they're gonna want this kind of thing, and then you kind of know what you're going toward, how much you're gonna need to invest to
Right.
get there, and they can make a decision based on that, instead of, part of the problem always in planning is that people propose one thing, everybody hates it, then they propose something else and everybody hates it, and it just keeps going, and that's a lot of money and time, and people need some certainty for investment, and that's how you get revitalization, because you provide the certainty through a pattern book.
Right.
So
And
that's part of
and also, the
that.
community needs to be protected, and, because they invested in the community all the time, already.
Right. The community is the backbone of it all. They're the
Yeah.
ones that are gonna live there and shop there and look
Yeah.
at it. So you want it to be
What they
something
want.
they could be proud of and happy to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because this is not necessarily now the historic concepts, Janice share a plan. This is just a conceptual idea of like, what are we talking about? And what are we aiming toward? And if this isn't it, what is it, So that's, this is an iterative process. That's the idea there.
Paul, could you pull up the SketchUp flyby, just as we're talking to have a visual? Thank you. I mean, I think that's a great segue, I think we had developed this plan, that has the SketchUp kind of character. And it's really, again, it's just that kind of visual representation of what development could look like if it was carried out in a way that was consistent with the pattern book. So it's really focused more on the frequency of streets, creating those smaller blocks that are more walkable and inviting, and creating, the kind of visualizing the way that the buildings are meeting the street. So they're pulled up to the street, creating that comfortable walking zone for pedestrians, creating that contained outdoor space that feels more like a traditional downtown.
Village.
There aren't parking lots and wide voids. That's much more inviting to pedestrians and gives more vibrant kind of streetscape and street life. And then looking at, the height of buildings, that you can see there's variability. 1-story buildings, 2-story buildings, some are 2-story that have a little bit of a peaked roof. But this is not, as Janice was saying, this is not a plan that we are pitching to be developed. I know that the town is not going to build this. Historical Concepts is not working with a developer. We are not going to build this. This is really an example showing how these principles could be applied.
This would be the most they could build, the most density.
And that's exactly it, that this is
Because
creating the
I-
framework. When you look at the plan,
Yeah.
we've shown sample footprints. These footprints could be smaller.
Yeah.
And we've shown the buildings for kind of the yields that we've included. We've shown the assumption that all the buildings are 2 stories, just, as kind of like you're saying, the worst case scenario. So we are trying to give the planning department some numbers that they could use as the basis for engineering, sewage, traffic studies,
But to be fair, it doesn't mean that whoever owns this property will
gonna do
build
it.
this.
Right.
That's the
This
thing
footprint could be
here.
smaller, it could be 1 story.
And
the
they may
densities
say,
will
I'm not
change.
doing this unless it's bigger or different
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form, but this is to have that conversation. So we fully expect the property owner to say, this doesn't work for me, or it does work for me, and we're not zoning for them, but you need that input. Just like you want industry input, you need property owner input, just so that if they say, I'm never building this, we're sort of back at square one. So like, you know what I mean? Or they could just sell it, and then whoever they sell it to would know, this is what the town expects you to build. So, this was meant, and we initially, when we set out to get Historical Concepts to come back, we didn't want any input from any outside property owner, because we knew the property owner here, at least the one that owns the most land, as you know, has an idea of what they want to build. And we said, don't look at any of that, just tell us what you would do, like, based on your own planning knowledge and principles of downtown planning. And that's where that little video was posted, and they went through that kind of design process, thought process to come up with this. This is their recommendation, or just, here's an idea, again, there's limitless scenarios. You can do a lot of different scenarios. This could be scenario 4, right? Except, like that would be what we're talking about, where there's multiple different types of ways to do this, and this is only one of many.
Well, so I think that, that was the kind of design concept that we had taken in January to those public meetings to receive feedback. And again, we were really, as Janice was saying, this is one example of what could be developed, if development occurred in a way that was consistent with the pattern book. And we think that this meets the objectives that we heard from the residents previously of wanting that vibrant mixed use, walkable downtown. And so we took that to the 3 community groups, and we said, is this the sort of place that you would want? Is this the sort of development that you mean when you say, you want to revitalize downtown Hampton Bays? If this was the outcome, would you be happy? That was really the question, the feedback we were looking for. And so I think that kind of leads us to the survey results. And I'll give our high-level summary, and I guess let you expand if you want.
Is it
You know,
my
I think the little handout I had mentioned here gives some stats, and I think, it does seem like, there's a lot of mixed responses, but our takeaway was that it seemed like more than 50% of the people liked the conceptual design generally. We had responses of 55, 61%. People liked the way the streets were related to the park. They liked the character of the buildings. And again, this was really a design exercise, so that was the sort of feedback we were hoping to hear. Yes, kind of the physical form and character seemed to be meeting, more the majority, not a overwhelming majority, but the majority of people seemed to like the kind of design, the character of the spaces. And then the next question that was asked was, what do you dislike about the conceptual design? And there was a very wide variety of responses, but the takeaway to us was there was not clear consensus on that. Kind of the largest dislike was at 35%, and it seems like the dislikes were much more about the specifics of the uses of the buildings, the density of residential, the size of the apartments, what would the traffic impact be, what would the tax burden be. So it was really not about the design, but more about the specifics that would have to be determined through engineering, density, what the actual final design would be. But it didn't seem to be disliking kind of the design or the form, which is what we're really trying to get to in terms of the conceptual rendering and the pattern book. So that was kind of our big takeaway, that it did seem like more than 50% of the residents generally like this design direction, but they just have a lot of questions about how it would be implemented. So I think that kind of brings us to where we are today of what's the next step, how would this be implemented? There are multiple ways to go about that. I guess before I get there, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to expand on regarding the survey.
No, I think that the document you provided provides a good summary for the board. What I handed out to the board is the raw data. Excuse me, I think there are a couple of things that I would like to bring to your attention about that raw data. This is all statistical, not in any way meant to be analytical. We've done several surveys in the Hampton Bays community over the years, some of them on a similar topic, and we always get a very good response. In this case, we got over 1,000 respondents. We also always ask for demographic data. Who are the people who are responding? This survey, for the first time, has a almost equal distribution of age groups from 18 to 55 plus. In the past, respondents have been predominantly self-identifying as 55 or older, to the tune of 65 to 70% of the people are in that one age group, which is fine, but there's then a large age group that appears to be underrepresented in this particular survey. In this case, there are 53% who self-identified as over 55, and 47% identify as under 55, almost an equal distribution. That's a change in demographics from the past. The demographic identifiers that haven't changed is it's always a large representation of people who live here all year round. It's always a large representation of people who own their own homes. It's always a large representation of people who do not have children in the schools. And it's always been a large representation of people who do not own or rent a business property in Hampton Bays. This survey is consistent with those demographics from the past. However, whatever conclusions you want to draw from that are interpretive on your part, but they are similar in those characteristics of demographics, significantly different in one demographic that we asked, That's the age distribution, and this is more equitable distribution than in the past. The other thing that I want to point out, and it may be obvious, we had 9 people who took the survey in Spanish. That doesn't mean that there were only 9 Spanish people who took the survey. They were 9 people who took the Spanish version of it, that there might be 500 people among the 1,000 or 50 people among the 1,000 who would self-identify as Spanish, but decided to take the survey in English. So although I disaggregated those numbers, they're not, because that's the way the surveys were collected, it's not meant to distinguish that there's one audience of people, of non-Hispanic people, and one audience of Hispanic people. It's more than likely that the 1,000 has some demographic representation that's consistent with the population within the community. But we didn't ask that question in that level of detail, so we can't make that distinction. But I don't think it's a stretch to assume that because I'm a Spanish-speaking person and I decided to take the survey in English, that I'm not represented here. But from this survey data, we have no way of distinguishing that. The other thing that's unique about this survey as opposed to others is there are 2 questions, and I think historic concepts refer to that, question number 7 and question number 8, that have a very large number of individual comments. Question 7 had 364 individual comments, and question 8 had almost 500 individual comments. I would encourage the board to read those over, because you don't have much else to do with your time, so you can read those comments. But they are subjective, but they're valuable in their subjectivity. It's very hard, if I would think, because I read them, to say, well, the general flavor of these comments is this. They are so varied and come at it from so many different angles that you can't cast one umbrella to generalize about those comments. Each of them is value. Some of them are is valuable. Some of them are repetitive, but they are subjective. And I think surveys like this that do get at some subjective perspectives are even more valuable than the quantitative ones. Having done some research in both quantitative and qualitative analysis, both have their benefits, but in some arenas, depending on the information you're looking for, the qualitative analysis, which is what the subjective comments would represent, provide you with valuable insights. And I would encourage you to look at it that way. Don't look for any clues of this is what the community wants, but look at the range of the responses, and in some cases, the depth of the responses. There are some comments among the nearly 800 comments that are 700-800 words long. People put a lot of time and energy into voicing a broad range of opinions and their insights from their personal perspective. So that's unique in this survey from other surveys, and I'm not saying ignore the qualitative part of it, what's been summarized by historic concept and the raw data match up. But the comment periods are very valuable and are worth a look-see. And then you might have better insight into this next iteration. How close does it match those subjective comments? What are we headed in the right direction? Did we miss the boat entirely? They can be valuable, but I want to emphasize it's a subjective analysis at this point. And if the board needs to go in a different level to get data that's more quantifiable, I'm not sure a mass survey is the best way to do that. Other than that, I don't really have anything to add. This is not yet posted on the town website because the board had not seen the raw data yet. After this meeting is done,
Are you posting the raw data?
Yes.
Are you removing the inappropriate things from the raw data?
Like the comments, there's some, there's
We
some.
will go, yes.
There's some
We haven't done that
inappropriate
yet,
comments.
and that's taking some time.
Okay.
And we'll do the best we can to have several people look at it and make sure things that would be not appropriate to be on a town website without eliminating a perspective from any individual.
Well, some of the, as I'm glancing through, there's a few that are outright racist, there's foul language, there's, so.
Understood. And I'm glad that you brought it up, Cindy, because I think that's a task we should set the staff to. And people would understand that it is not meant to eliminate anyone's particular insight. It's meant to be respectful and appropriate and within the bounds of, dare I say, freedom of speech.
I appreciate that.
Maybe there's a way to go through all of the comments and somehow categorize all of the comments and then compile them into those categories, perhaps?
I honestly think just letting
Just
people read the
redact
raw data
Is
and
better.
removing the things that
Redact.
really
Okay.
shouldn't,
Yeah,
aren't
because,
appropriate.
and
Because
it's a good
then
suggestion.
we'll get the argument that we,
Shifted things around.
yeah,
Got it.
and then
Got
I
it.
just
Yeah,
don't wanna.
and that's, you just sort of read what's on the left of my
Right.
mind. If you put them in categories, they may be defensible.
Right.
But they assume someone has made the judgment that this comment belongs in
Right.
this
There could be a
category.
miscategorization, I get
Yeah,
it.
so it's best to, this is the way they came in, let everybody see it as it is, it's complete transparency, less the comments that are inappropriate. And I think it'll be a meaningful exercise and meaningful documentation for the community.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just have one more question. What program did you use to collect the data?
We collected the
Okay.
data.
The town
So,
collected
yeah.
data.
Okay, did you
And-
use SurveyMonkey?
Yeah.
or-
We use
okay.
SurveyMonkey, yeah, and SurveyMonkey is the one that provides the statistical summaries.
Got it. And with that, does SurveyMonkey record IP addresses so you have some sort of understanding where the comments are being submitted from?
I don't know if they record them to that degree, Michael, I
Okay.
can check. But what they do, if I'm on my home computer and I take the survey, and my daughter comes to the computer to do the same survey,
Yeah.
you can't do two surveys from the same IP
So it's
address.
recording the IP
It
address?
has the IP addresses,
Okay.
but it's not readily available
Whether
to
whether they
find out where they
compile,
come
I mean, what I'm saying is there, could we go back and get a record of that? I
Of
don't
course,
know the
yeah,
answer to that.
and the reason why I'm actually asking that question actually is due to the fact that we've received concerns that some people will be submitting more than once to offset the outcome of the data. So I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah, and
there is some,
Well, you can respond from your phone, from your iPad,
That's
from your
true.
computer, from
That's
your
true.
work computer, from, it's,
but I'm sure that's not reflected in the majority
No.
of the,
yeah, and
over 1,000
I would
respondents. It's,
just, I appreciate you bringing that up. If you did it, as I did, when we were testing this, I went in and took the survey and found some things that were in error. So the changes were made, I went to take the survey again, and I got a message, you've already taken this survey.
okay,
So I had to make some changes. And if the kind of thing is happening where a person is using their iPad, their Samsung device, or their Apple phone, or their whatever, maybe, but the percentage of people who would be going to that degree to be deceptive
right. It's a small percentage.
is a very small percent, and I don't think it would have any impact on the data that we've collected here.
Do you know how long it took for people to take the survey? Do you
I don't know how long
approximately?
it took others, but I would represent the over 55 group and say that it took me about 15 minutes in
Okay.
total.
Good to know, thank you.
And this is a survey, we're not putting this out as a poll, this is a survey.
No,
A self-selecting,
Yep.
people decide to take this survey.
yeah.
Okay.
And in every case, there were opportunities for adding comments. The two that I mentioned before received the most frequent comments. It was very rare, which is another distinction for other surveys. This only had 11 questions. None of those people who included in this total number skipped any of the questions. And in the past, we would have people answer 10 of the 11 questions, or 8 of the 11 questions, or write in their own question at the end and make it 12 questions, but we didn't have any
well, I
of
know
that.
people said you couldn't proceed to the next question without answering the question.
Correct. And that's a change that we made from learning
Okay,
from our
so
past.
we made that change?
Correct.
Okay.
How many surveys have we done in the past 5 years? Is this
In
the
total?
third?
Oh, this is at least the third one we've done in Hampton Bays.
Right, specific to the redevelopment or
Yeah,
possible
I
redevelopment.
think,
I mean, the last one we went through was very, I mean,
Well,
we
there's
remember we
the one
sat
that-
here
I
through an
do- I-
entire work session and went
I
through
do.
all the questions.
yeah,
That was that one.
No, that was the
No.
one that we did when Jay was here.
we
Oh,
did
okay.
one when you did the
Because I know
pattern book.
Oh,
we
yeah,
drove,
yeah, yeah.
we drove Frank nuts because there was like 20 responses to some of the
Okay.
questions.
So, yeah, so
I
just
learned
a-
from that mistake as
Yeah.
well.
So what,
So to answer Tom John's question, I
Yeah.
believe this is the third
Mhm.
in Hampton Bays on this topic of downtown redevelopment.
Okay, thank you.
So I think our takeaways from the public meetings from the survey, was really that the bulk of the content in the pattern book is still relevant and would still represent, still enable the sort of development that we had heard the residents of Hampton Bays would like to see in the downtown area. I think we're recognizing that there are some revisions to make, and so that is what we're working on right now. So generally, we're updating kind of all the specifics of the dates, all the front matter, kind of making sure the reorganization is all correct. We are updating any of the, just from a nuance standpoint, we're removing reference to the overlay district. That's when we had done the pattern book previously, there was an overlay district that had been created, that would be a subsequent separate zoning, so we're removing reference to that. It's really just the downtown area, the village business district as exists under current zoning that this would apply to.
What's the scope of that?
So it's really that visual, it's still the same. In your packet there is, let's see this page, so it's still the same boundaries. You can see on this graphic there are actually two lines outlining the area. There is a yellow line and a purple dashed line, and so the yellow line, the purple line represents the village business zoning parcels, so that is the current
What page is that on?
zoning. Sorry, we don't have page.
It's the first
numbers
map.
here. Yeah, it's closer to the front, we're kind of in the middle.
Wait, so the pattern book, I mean, is it
So-
only applying to this little 10-acre area or
So-
the entire downtown?
The entire village business district.
So
Yeah, So you
basically-
can see the outline, goes from Good Ground Road at the railroad station up to Good Ground Park, and from
The thrift store, thrift stop.
yep, Springville and Ponquag, kind of over here, so you can see the outline. Those are, under current zoning, those are all village business
Mhm.
parcels.
Springville to Ponquag.
Mhm.
Yeah, actually,
The,
it's from the Catholic
both
Church
north and south
the old
sides of
Catholic
Montauk
Church.
Highway.
up to the thrift store right above this church.
so
the
if someone
previous, the
wants,
previous exhibits had this additional yellow dash line that was the overlay district that was
So I'm looking at the
contemplated previously.
overlay.
That's being removed,
Okay.
but it was the same exact, actual kind of geometry as the village business district.
'Cause that's,
One of the things,
that's what you have to explain, because people get confused.
Yeah, so what, kind of the visuals that we had done were a smaller portion of that, again, just for efficiency.
Can you share that on the screen? Because
Paul, can
the-
you go back to
So
that?
people can see
The
it.
downtown overlay district map. Yeah, there you go. So we had just done a visual of a smaller section to represent what development could look like, but as we're contemplating it, we would recommend that the pattern book apply to this entire village business district.
Can you
Yes.
zoom in on that a little bit, Kevin? So people can see it.
Can you
so
zoom
in other words,
It's hard
if you
to see
wanted
the
to build a
guidelines.
building in this area, the planning board would say, which building style are you choosing from the pattern book? And then
Then
you
we're
would
not
have to
changing the zoning,
follow
we're just, it's still gonna
those
be village
guidelines.
business.
which
So
is
it's an opt-in?
important because some people have
opt-in.
said, well, what about Montauk Highway? Nothing's been done to help the storefronts there. So if this pattern book affects the entire, business district, then if somebody does want to renovate their building that fronts on the main street, it has to comply with the designs.
And I do
So
think that
eventually
previously
things
this
will
was
change.
used to help facilitate a grant program for facade revitalization.
That's true.
CDBG money.
Yeah.
Janice, is it zone change or opt-in zoning?
So
This
I
is
think
no
that-
zone, this is just village business as it stands today, and a pattern book for any buildings proposed in the village business zone. Now, when it comes to what do you want to do with this conceptual plan they laid out, and are we doing that anymore, or
Yeah.
that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
You can just say, you know what, this has been a fun exercise, we know what people want, but let's leave it to, see what happens in VB, and let's change the criteria in VB as it is, or not. We're
Well,
not
I think we should
pushing
talk
any
about it. Let's
necessarily
talk
thing.
about it.
Yeah.
Well, and before we get to that, I think that was kind of our last slide, was really talking about what those next steps are. And I think we, before we gloss over it, as I mentioned, we're just doing some minor updates to this. We're updating the, kind of any of the plan graphics to make sure we're getting rid of any mention of the overlay district, to update it with our, kind of current visuals that we've developed. And then we've also, one of the consistent things we heard was that the residents did not like anything that was 3 stories or above, so we've removed that. So right now, everything that the pattern book is referring to or allowed to is less than 3 stories. There's no 3 stories. So we're making that change as well. So it'd be up to 2
So
2.5
really, I
stories.
mean, we have a pattern book for the village business district, but unless we do something with the zoning, that
This
plan
can't
that
be.
we looked
Yeah,
at
this-
So
can't
that's
happen.
really where we're at now. So we are gonna deliver this revised pattern book to you, I think as Janice is alluding to. This could be a standalone tool that is used under the existing
And this kind
zoning.
of got thrown out with everything else, and this still has its validity with just regular planning.
Just one other thing about the 3-story building, you would have to check with the fire department, because they might not have equipment to go up to 3 floors.
Usually
We're
they
not
require
allowing
sprinklers, but
3
we're
stories.
not even having it
No,
in
2
there.
stories.
So it's under the current, building code, the roof can go up to 35 feet, so it's working within that. It's only,
Okay.
2.
Could have 2.5
2.5
stories, right?
stories, yep, but that's the max right now, in the way we're writing this. And so then I think if you go to the last slide, Paul, so that's really what we're here to talk about, that I think, the pattern book could be a standalone tool that's used in the existing village business zoning, so we could move forward with that. I think there are other scenarios as well that you could talk about. You could talk about, writing a new category for zoning that, could apply to the whole town, but could land here potentially. I mean, there are different ways depending on how the town, how, I guess, how much guidance you want to give, how much you want to focus or enable development versus just kind of seeing what the market will bring.
So Janice, with PDDs off the table, is there a pathway to this outside of the current zoning through a variance pathway, or no? There's no pathway to that,
Right.
in that plan.
The pathway to this plan would be just to lay out the street network potential, because some of these streets have to cross private
I
property.
mean, can they go through a subdivision process to,
So there's a lot of things that have to happen to get this to actually work. And that requires street networks and reparcelization to some degree. Is there a code that you could enact? There's always a code you can enact, and we've been researching this even from the previous administration. You've heard before in the past talk of, we should just do mixed-use zoning type of code. And then you could create those categories, and someone could have, say, well, we want to do mixed-use zoning here, and here's what we propose, which is what I think is better anyway, because no matter what we come out with, there's always going to be
so the
a
pathway to
challenge.
this, though, outside of current zoning, would have been a PDD, for somebody to come in and say, I own this property, this is what I want to do, pitch their plan, we go through the
Sure,
process.
that would have been the easiest way, and as someone who's written mostly, many of the PDDs here that we have, that would have been great, but we don't have that tool. Can you write a mixed-use zoning code and have, benefits built into it where you have, sort of offsets and community benefits allowed? Yes, you can do that too. And then let someone else apply and let someone else do that work. That's also possible. Could you parcelize this the way we see it here in this picture and put the streets on paper and say this is the official map? You could do that too.
I just feel like
So-
this is the town
This is the
Going
town's
to-
way of understanding. So we had, the previous supervisor was sort of doing a SketchUp model on his own, and it was decided by the board, we need a professional firm to lay out what we would like to see. And that is what they did. Now, are we building this plan? Elizabeth said, we're not building it, they're not building it. We don't know if any of the owners want to build it. So how do you get from today to this plan?
But that's what I'm saying, like, why go through the exercise of doing this and saying, this is what we wanna see, this is what we're putting zoning in place for, and then still have nobody that wants to come build it?
Well, right, that's why I'm of the mind nowadays, considering everything and just not putting, more effort into something to get more animosity over, is to just create like a mixed-use category and let the property owners apply, but have some parameters as to, hey, you need to provide public parking. And we don't want your parking under your building and not public, one of the benefits, that you can have trade-offs and performance sort of things
And
built
also
in.
protect against, 40,000 square foot buildings.
Yeah, and you can put standards to say,
Yeah.
well,
I
no
think that's
building
really-
over this
I
much.
think that's really important, to protect
Yeah.
the community on these huge buildings, what could be
Right.
built.
So you could do that, and we can kind of sketch out what that would look like. It's really what you want to do.
Two roads are on? Do we own this property that these two new streets?
We don't own any of these properties. You are deciding as a regulatory agency how it has to conform to a certain
We can,
pattern.
they could put this property.
So
road
if
in, and
you
they
don't
donate it to the
like
town.
this or want this, or the community says this isn't it, also the other reason, the benefit, if somebody says, why are you wasting our money doing this, that would be the next criticism. I would say we did this to have a sense of also what the program would be to plan your sewage treatment system. You can't do that without some sense of numbers, and we can't have numbers unless we lay it out and say, well, this is what
Yeah.
these numbers would give us, what would other numbers give us?
And,
So we can keep doing this forever, but at some point, we have to decide on something.
Right. I think
Which
that's
is
the-
really important. What I see, what I got out of this is to prevent which the people don't want.
Yeah, I
Right.
think this gives you kind of a visual design directive of what we've heard the residents would be excited about. It gives you, right, the kind of engineering basis, like Janice mentioned, you have some of those assumptions to inform the sewage treatment plant. And it kind of has that visual to show a potential developer of what sort of development, would be received well in this area. So it gives a little bit more certainty. And then as Janice is alluding to, you could use this as the basis to write that mixed-use zoning guidance that then could actually enable this, that would be the mechanism to
Yeah.
enable this development to happen.
I just, we have limited number of developers that actually own the property that are looking to do it. And I just feel like we're going through this exercise without, I know we got criticized that we're doing this for them, but it's also not in our best interest to do this without any input from them, because why go through the entire exercise? Why have people in the community upset when we could be putting something in place that nobody wants to build?
Right, so I think it's almost better to just create a category for someone to apply, let them apply, let everybody react to that, let them do SECRA on their own plan, and move forward. Like, I hear everything on both sides. All the criticisms are heard and understood, and also all the people who say, what are we doing, what are we waiting for, we're sick of this, want something to happen. So there's that too. So balancing everything, understanding at least visually what we would like to get to, maybe. You would have to decide that, not me. This is nice as far as I'm concerned, and a good effort that shows something for people to react to, and that was the goal. So I think we achieved our goal, and I think revising the pattern book would also achieve our goal, because we don't want arbitrary standards at the planning level. So that's my objective. And then after that, if you like, we can now say, all right, let's take this and use it as a basis to create a mixed-use category and let someone apply under that category. So we can all react to what someone really wants to do instead of our pie-in-the-sky ideas of what we would like or don't like.
It's a good suggestion.
Well, it seems like we've spent a lot of time, not me personally, because I've just been here for 3 months, but, everybody previously just put a lot of effort into this and a lot of time, and I don't know that I'm ready to just walk away from it. I mean, most of the people that I've met at the CACs and the civics and the chamber seem to be in favor of something. You know, if you just stand still, you're gonna fall behind. You have to be brave and make a change and see what comes of it. And I know that change is uncomfortable and scary, but if we don't do anything, nothing's gonna change. And I just think that a lot of the people that I've heard from have said things like, we like it, we like the way it looks, but we just want apartments above the shops and the offices. We don't want apartment buildings. You know, so if that's something we could regulate, then I think people would be comfortable with that.
And I think if we do that, we knock out the developers, because it's not profitable for them to just do retail space with a few apartments above it. It has to be a balance, and I think finding that balance that's still profitable, but still meets the needs of the community is where we're at an impasse, and it's kind of like, and that's why, you know, I caution, you know, when we had the PDP process, to allow a developer to come in and then take the weight of going to the community and getting feedback and getting buy-in on their plan. Like, it's us doing that now, and we're the face of it. And, you know, and even as far as the pattern book, which I love, and I think it's great, you know, so now what is to say to a developer, you know, if I build in Hampton Bays, I have to build to this. I can go to other hamlets, I don't have to meet these standards. I can, you know.
It is kind of the price of admission, but at the same time, they want to capture the economics of this area. And so, yes, you have to do a higher level design. And I mean, I've been telling that to people for 20 years.
And I've heard that there's a serious shortage of office space. I mean, I don't know that for 100% sure myself, but that's what people have been saying. They're trying to find office space, they can't. Of course, everybody would like a lot of little retail boutiques, but if that's not what's driving the market, at least it could be some retail, some offices, and then apartments.
But
And
that's
then
the market to sort of, the whole idea, just to take it back one step, of a form-based code was to say form over function, sort of, as long as it looks good and we like how it looks and feels, who cares if there's an office or a, you know, like, it's gonna change. Nothing is set in stone. Like, if you're set in stone, that means you're not alive anymore. Like, you're not set in stone, so it's gonna change.
Yeah, it was more focused on kind of shaping what the public realm or public experience was, you know,
Right,
and that's
yeah.
what it was mandating over the use of the building. But I think it's important to mention, you know, I know we've heard that a lot of people want the businesses, you know, want the coffee shops, but that is not sustainable if you don't have a residential population to frequent those. You know, yes, people will come here as a destination, but that's only a, you know, segment of the business that those businesses need to thrive. So I think the residential does definitely need to be a component to ensure that this is a vibrant, sustainable community.
But like a little downtown with the apartments above the stores is really what people are looking for. And now you've got all this additional parking and the beautiful park behind it. So people will come from elsewhere now that they can more easily park and go to Good Ground Park and go to the shops to meet. And then another comment was, you know, it's uncomfortable for some people to have the two new roads. I like the way they're oriented, and that it draws people off of the Main Street back to Good Ground Park. I think that's brilliant, you know, because that's what we want to do. But to allow, you know, the streets to go actually into the park, some people aren't comfortable, and I know it's got a bollard design, but maybe if we could just end it there and have some kind of cross
question
and
is,
not
like,
go into the park.
Well, this is just a concept, and if you're not laying out the streets in an official map, then these are not real streets. These are just pictures. Somebody would have to design a street-like way, and they can dedicate it to us if it meets our standards. But if we're not building any of this and we're not mapping these roads, then these are just conceptual. And there's two ways to go here. You're either mapping it out and saying, this is the official map, and this is a paper street. And if you come in and put a building on top of a paper street, like, you can't do that in planning world. You have to build the street to the
Maybe we
specs.
build the street.
Who's gonna build the street? You know, then
Maybe
all
we
these
build the
questions
street.
come
I don't
up.
think we should get into building streets.
The
for
developers build the
district
street,
development.
in every subdivision, in every site plan, the developers build the street
then we
and they
take them
dedicate
into our-
it to our system. So we are not building the street. In a PDD, we would say, you build the street and we'll build it, you know, we would give and take. But then that got morphed into, you know, this is zoning for dollars or whatever people
I
said,
mean, I
but
don't
that
even
wasn't
think,
actually what
I
happened.
don't even think our board is all on the same page with what we want to see. So it's like getting it to a place where the community's going to buy in and love it and want to see it is hard. Like, you know, just going to the access to the park. Like, I feel there has to be access to the park, either bollards or a crash gate or something, because in an emergency situation and you got to get people out of those parking lots and off of those streets, you can't just have them go one way out. Like, there has to be a relief valve.
Yes, that's
So,
very true.
you know, but, and I think most people that have said to me, I don't like the access to the park, when you explain it in that manner, they get it, you know, this is not, you know, and then they have the issue with, you know, well, you guys are saying that it's gonna be emergency access, the next board could come in and say, you know, we're opening it to the park. And that's true, and you can't tell them that it's not, but I think we have to plan within the confines of what's best practice and what's safest and best use. And I just don't, you know, we can say it's all retail. I mean, we could rezone this and say, you know what, everybody wants just retail with apartments or offices above, and that's it. And we can zone it that way. And take out all these townhouses and just make it all retail with apartments above. I don't think anybody's gonna build that.
Well, you could say mixed use category and say these are the kinds of mixes we want to see and let someone apply. And then you can say, this is no good or that's no good, or maybe it's not you, maybe it goes to the planning board who.
In all honesty, I would like to see what the people that own these properties, that there's, I think, what, 2 or 3 people that own this whole bank of property, I would like to see what they would like to do there and see if it works for everyone.
Haven't we done that?
Yes, but
No.
they have no path forward. It doesn't matter what they want to do because the zoning doesn't allow that. So either you provide them a path or you see what they do and zone around it, which is also that's a PDD.
But something that was communicated today is that this sets classification for future development, sets some guidelines and guardrails for future development in this space, which is already owned by landowners. That
Well,
may-
this is a concept that could do that, but
Right.
you haven't taken steps to do that
Correct,
yet.
correct.
Yes.
But the adoption of something like this
The pattern.
would actually, sorry?
The pattern.
The pattern book, correct, would actually be in the interest of the community who is concerned about overdevelopment, big box stores coming in, dominating Hampton Bays.
Well, you know, I think, again, if then you just do this same downtown overlay district type of thing again, you're just subjecting yourself to further challenge instead of just saying, let's just create a wholesale category and let someone come in and apply under it and then see how that goes instead
on the pattern
of
book.
us laying it all out.
Based on the
Either-
pattern book designs.
The
Correct
pattern
me
book
if
is
I'm
just
wrong,
about
you
the
could do
architectural
it-
Right.
styles.
you could
But
still
if you have a
do-
pattern book and a mixed-use zoning can
Yeah,
work
yeah.
together.
Yeah, because the
You
pattern
can
book,
do this.
correct me if I'm
You could
wrong,
do that.
will not say you can't do a big box store. It's just gonna dictate how the facade looks and,
And like cross connections.
Yeah.
And parking behind that. We already do that in VB anyway. Yes, that's true. So yes, this pattern book is more about the architectural styles, but it does touch on the fact that the block lengths are so big that you really, in order to have a vibrant downtown, you need to make it walkable.
I like the pattern book, I have
So
no.
there's that. Then it's just, how do we get from, we have this, and we kinda like this, maybe, but what, you know, we don't know if someone's gonna propose this exactly. So either we're gonna lay it out and reparcelize and hope over time, people are gonna build building by building, or you have someone who's aggregated properties who wants to build something. Might as well just like see how that,
And
you
if you're
know,
talking
is
about
gonna
us
be
building roads,
proposed,
we
but tell
can't-
them there's certain guidelines, like we're not doing, you know, 4-story buildings and all that.
We can't
So-
build the roads because this is all still private property.
You can condemn roads, I mean,
Yeah,
but
we
I don't
could
think anybody, you know,
condemn.
yes, you can definitely take that procedure and say, these are the roads. But if it's, you're not gonna get development around the roads, then what's the point of putting those roads there?
Yeah.
Well, we're designing the sewer treatment plant, right? That's not just gonna address this little 10 square mile area. It's gonna be the entire downtown business district.
Corridor.
So, corridor, okay. So that's a given. That's what we decided to do. It's gonna help the community. And I just see this as one more step, something new, something fresh.
Sure. So we just, I think that for historical concepts purpose, because they are on contract with us and they've done everything that we've asked them to do. And now we just need to update our pattern book, and that's their last task. And so they will continue to do that. And then we can think some more about this. And if you want, we can lay out those options of what those two
How we go about it.
ideas would look like.
That's great.
Okay.
Well, let's just do, can we get a little further along instead of saying, let's have another meeting to talk about it? I feel like it just keeps going on and on.
Do you
I
want
mean,
us
at
to write a
some
mixed
point
use
you
zoning
have
code,
to-
that would work here? I mean, and
I mean,
elsewhere?
why don't we have the developer go to the community and
He's
But
done that
didn't he
too.
already? I mean,
I
that
think
had
you
a lot
need-
of density involved, and the community didn't want that. So why are we going to
I've
do
never,
that
I
again?
don't even know who, for all of this, this developer guy, I've never met him. So I don't know, he's never come to the board and to my knowledge, in the over 2 years that I've been here. So like, there's this whole like, the town is in bed with the developer. I don't even know who this guy is. I wouldn't know if I passed him on the street. So, I mean,
I went to an express session event once, and he had, all the renderings up, and they were very pretty, and, some people were impressed with them, but others were pretty firm that it's the most, densely populated hamlet. Let's not add any more density unless it's just apartments above the stores. That's what we keep hearing.
So, what do you want?
I'd like to do mixed-use zoning based on the pattern book. That's what I think.
I think that's fair.
And of course, we'll hear from the community
Yeah.
and take that into consideration.
What did you say before when you said mixed-use zoning code? You said with benefits built in. What does that mean?
Well, there's all kinds of zoning, and there's one type of zoning called performance zoning, and you have to perform certain things, like,
So you can add stuff
you
in.
can provide certain
Yeah,
public
you can
benefits
put-
that you want to achieve.
Yeah, you can put coverage in that the community wants this, we don't want that.
from our side.
You can certainly add restrictions to any code. So you could say no building bigger than blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Or you
no
can
huge
say-
box stores.
Yeah,
That's
you
my
can
biggest
say,
concern,
Um,
that someone wants to come in there and build a Costco or something. I would not want to see that for Hampton Bays.
Yeah, so we can put those parameters in place and you can review it. And then we can say, this makes sense, and you can adopt it. And then someone can come in and apply under there, and then you can review that. The question is, who are they applying to? Is this something where mixed-use zoning is only permitted by special use permit by the town board? Or is it by the planning board? Or who's reviewing what, when, and how? And those are the questions that we would answer in the
I don't think
sunset
it's
code.
fair to put it on the planning board.
So,
No.
so typically, in other, places, the town board does review special use permits. You would give yourself that ability, so you could do that. But,
Change of non-conforming use. But
it's
that
like
doesn't-
that, yeah, but it's not a change in non-conforming use, it's called a special use permit. And so you would say that mixed-use zoning is a special use permit that is only granted by the town board under these circumstances and based on these criteria.
Yeah, these
And then you
guidelines.
review, yeah.
You have the guidelines, you have the special
I mean,
governments.
why do you think it's unfair? I'm just curious with the planning board, because they know how to lay things out properly planned.
Because it's going to be a very contentious thing, and they're not elected officials, and I feel that people, if a plan goes through, that people are really, it's the same reason why the former supervisor put a change of one non-conforming use to another before the town board, that there's an elected component to it, where if they're really not happy with what you saddled them with, they can vote you out.
So
So
it still
should it-
goes to the planning board for
Later,
site
for
plan.
For site plan.
Yeah.
But you provide whether or not you're gonna give that special use permit.
Yeah.
So I think
It's-
that might be the compromise here between
Mhm.
these two extremes of like, you're not doing a new downtown overlay district. You're not reparcelizing the whole downtown, which, that would be quite an effort, although,
We're not condensing
I mean,
roadways.
you're not condemning roadways, maybe, if you can't get across a parcel, if somebody can't get across, and that's a plan you like what's gonna happen there? So that's the rub on that one. So whether or not you want to put the roadways in place, is something that remains to be seen, just from a planning perspective. I think you need to consider.
Yeah, well,
But first, let somebody propose something and then see
then
what
we can go
happens.
from there.
I
As long
wouldn't,
as we have the guidelines are strict.
yeah, so
we
we, you know, we're happy to, work on that, give you the guidelines, tweak them, public debate, and see where that goes. Maybe that's the way forward.
All right.
All right,
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you,
Thank you.
thank you,
thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Paul.
thank you to you both.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for everything.
And Janice,
that's
thank you.
Sure.
Nicely.
I forgot Paul was there.
Am I on next? Am I on community zoning too?
Thank you, yes, you are.
I'm still here.
I can, you know what, let me run it off and I'll give you one for your file.
Did you stamp them? She took it.
Thank you for the presentation.
Don't worry about it, we won't tell.
I'm sorry. Please stand.
Thank you.
Can I, oh, thank you so much. Can I just excuse myself for one moment?
Sure.
Thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
By the way, these are just for you to read. From there.
What paper?
That's just for.
Oh, thanks.
From earlier in the item.
Okay.
Those are the responses.
Oh, thank you.
Janice, there was a shortage of copies and things like that. Did you?
Here, you can have my copy.
Oh, okay,
Okay, thanks.
thanks.
Oh. I still, when I search, I can't find it, so this is fun.
Do you want a copy, Christine?
If you have one,
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you.
Why can't I find it? Oh, da, da, da.
Was this handed out?
Yeah, that's for
That's for the resolution that was on earlier. There's a couple more sections, but those are the most important ones. So you read those, responsive. Oh my God, so beautiful. I love the one, two different color eyes.
Yeah, that's Izzy.
Izzy,
Izzy, yeah.
great name.
It's like Penny's father's daughter.
Aw,
It's the same bloodline.
okay, are we ready? So, thanks again. This is an effort that was brought up by Councilman Scavone, and we brought this out to the last board, but we wanted to remind you again, or bring it up to the new board, right?
Yeah.
Know what this is?
Right, it was in the fall. And these are our, the properties that have our transfer stations, and this would relate to the underlying zoning. Currently, 2 properties are zoned CR 200, and then 2 properties are zoned OSC, open space conservation. Kind of hard to, in my opinion, think that the Hampton Bays Transfer Station or the North Sea Transfer Station is currently open space conservation. So this would change the underlying zoning from those to a municipal designation, which would be a new zoning designation in the town of Southampton.
And it basically would just, instead of seeing OSC or CR 200, you would see Muni. And then you'll just create a category that says that, you know, for general municipal purposes.
We
Like
don't
you'll-
have that category anymore?
We don't have it out, we never
No.
did.
But then you could do basically whatever you want on those properties.
Well, you can still now, but people go, "Oh, wait, it's zone residential, you shouldn't be," you know, we don't want residential to be ever in those, we're never gonna put residential at the
It's
dump.
too dangerous.
And it doesn't make any sense to classify it as residential.
I get it, but it opens up to, I mean, yes, we can do whatever we want there, but within reason, and we have to go.
Well, right,
for
and so under that
variances.
category, you can say what's permitted. So you would say highway yard waste, you would say, transfer station, you know, compost, whatever facility.
This is what we own in a proprietary function already.
Yes.
I'm just trying to, so
It's
what
just
use
that the
would that?
zoning doesn't comport with what it is owned and used for.
So
So it's zoned something, and it's not used as that.
So
So it's
basically-
zoned for open space, but
So
it's
it's a
used as a
pre-existing
transfer.
non-conforming use.
Yeah, but why do you wanna do, you really wanna keep it as a pre-existing non-conforming use? It doesn't make any sense,
I
especially
just
when
feel
it's
like
CR
it's,
200.
that's what people know what's being used for, and that's what it's been historically used for, and I don't see us changing these, and if we ever did, I mean, go through a
Right,
process.
there would be no change. It's just lining up the zoning with the current and historic use
Which is a
and
good
future
idea.
use. You know,
I mean, if you
West
wanna use
Hampton
it, have a
as-
transfer station zone, I mean, that's what it's used for, that's what it's used for. I just don't wanna open the door to all these different uses that, you know,
that the town of
could
Southampton
potentially
might,
come down the pipe without.
Well, there's certainly, like at the North Sea Transfer Station, you're allowing solar on the landfill, you're also allowing a cell
That's
tower.
right.
These are revenue generators for the
Yeah.
town tax base to alleviate tax burden, so they're not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, that's the point, that you could use it. I'm not saying that you should or could, or you don't necessarily have to. I'm just saying, if you want to, rezone it. That was the, you know, the question was, why are they zoned this way?
What are they
when
zoned as?
Open space, conservation, and CR 200. That's a residential designation and a parkland designation,
It
which
is a
doesn't
little
make
bit
any
misleading.
sense.
But so if all this
Yeah.
stuff is already allowed and already taking place, I just don't see the function of rezoning it. There's a
you-
pathway to do all of
Well,
this.
renaming the zone.
You're kind of just you're reclassifying
zone.
those parcels.
And it might be better off
And then if
doing
you bought land,
instead.
let's say for that purpose, municipal purpose, you would zone that piece, that land,
And
you know.
you could put criteria as to
I
what
see, I
those
just
are.
see this as,
Yeah.
we're creating a new zoning code, right? So in the future, right now, we're talking about transfer stations. In the future, if the town buys parcels and zones them municipal, we can do a whole host of things on them that the underlying zoning does not allow.
Aren't we just creating a specification within the code?
No, but Janice is saying if we buy future parcels, we could zone them municipal.
Right,
Because we're
you
creating a new
could, but
zoning
that's
code.
not the point here. And I know of no parcels that you're buying for this purpose, so I just wanna make that clear. The point here was to say, these zoning categories don't make sense for what's happening on those parcels, because they're municipally owned and municipally used, and so either the zoning should be, it's ignored, is basically what you're doing, or comport with what's happening.
Yeah. there's
Let
some-
me ask you another question. If we do it for the transfer station, should we do it for the highway bonds, put them in the same category?
You could,
Municipal.
And this is where this is where you start to go down that path of allowing other things on other properties.
but these
because
are
it's now zoned
public,
municipal.
public things. Municipal is public, so
I
these are
get that it's
public
public.
uses.
There's a property right now that's owned in Quiog, that's, owned by the village of West Hampton, that's gonna be a solar field. Like, once you open the door to municipal uses, you're opening the door to other things. I just don't feel comfortable.
this
You
has
wanna-
nothing to do with that.
I get that, but if
Okay.
you wanna create a zoning code for transfer stations, let's create a zone for transfer stations. Let's say that's what they are. I don't think we should have this open-ended zoning designation that we can put on properties that allow us to do a lot of other things that people can't do.
So you
in
want
those
it to be
areas.
even more specific, granular
Yes.
to the.
If we're using it as transfer station,
So
we're zoning it
take
as
the
transfer
Hampton Bays
station.
transfer
I was
station property, for
misunderstanding your
example.
point.
If
But
I
now,
can-
what if you put an
Janice-
STP there?
Janice, if
Yeah,
I
I'm
get
sorry.
right there, so we're looking to put an STP over there, and currently, we are doing composting there. We do have a highway yard, which I think this should really, be put on that property as well. We have a fire training facility there. I mean, all of that's there, and it's zoned open space conservation. This just seems to straighten that out. But if you have a problem with that, and, like this is a no vote situation, well, I guess, we can deal with that as it comes, but I don't understand the
Well,
objection.
what about the solar at the North Sea transfer station? So then
Yeah,
that
that's
wouldn't be
community
included if
solar.
you just called it a
But what I'm
transfer
saying is,
station.
this is what the underlying zoning
SYS.
is. We're still allowing all of these things to happen on them.
That's on that.
It's not changing anything.
But isn't that problematic in itself?
Okay.
If it is zoned open space preservation and there's,
It's not preservation.
I'm sorry,
The Hampton
open
Bays, the
space
Hampton Bays,
conservation.
the Hampton Bays transfer station property is in the Pine Barrens. You're not clearing up there and doing more uses.
But you're going to
Without-
add potentially a sewage treatment plant there, and I don't even know if it's permitted in OSC, in all honesty. And that's not what the point was, but I don't know that you even can, because
So-
it's designated
So then we're gonna have
incorrectly.
municipal, and what are the uses? I think that's the question. What are the uses going to be in municipal?
Well, that's why I'm
zoning?
here to talk about it. You would say highway.
So it's gonna be all of the things that people don't want, and that's what we're gonna allow
But
in
when you say
municipal.
people don't want, these uses are for the public to function. We are servicing the public through these uses. So I'm not talking about anything other than, you need a place to bring your garbage. You need a place for the leaves. You need a place for, these things to happen. When we look at certain things and say, okay, well, you know what, on a landfill, we could also put solar, generate some revenue, and offset people's taxes. People don't want that. At the same time,
We're
it's
doing
not-
it.
It's not hurting any, not every single person doesn't want it.
But
You know what I mean?
We're doing it.
This
It's not like
board-
it's not allowed. We're doing it.
Sure, but we're,
On
you're just trying to
non-conforming
I just
straighten
feel
it
like,
out,
I
that's
feel
all.
like it
I mean,
opens,
you don't
I
have
feel
to
like it's
do
creating a
anything you
new
don't wanna
zoning
do.
code that opens a Pandora's box to allowing the town to put uses in place that wouldn't otherwise be allowed on the underlying zoning.
Well, I should mention that cell towers are allowed in every single zone. So like, you could put a cell tower on there now, even so, if, what are we talking about when you say
Because
these
that's an
noxious?
overlay.
Yeah, well, no, it's just allowed in every zone, because it's considered like a utility, technically.
You're looking at this as a housekeeping.
I do.
This
I
was
Cindy's looking at
presented
it
to me
as
as,
what's
I don't wanna
the-
argue of it,
what
like it
could-
was
I
asked
know,
to
I
me,
thought it was
as
like-
an easy
Like the thing
thing.
we need to do, because
I
we're,
look at it as a housekeeping too.
yeah, we have a transfer station on CR 200. I mean,
That's been
we're
there
non-conforming.
historically.
The town of Southampton is non-conforming in their use of their properties here. So, wanted to make it conforming.
When
change
Cindy
zoning
just
to make
mentioned
things
about
conform.
the Quiog property, I heard when the planning board was looking at it, one of the people at the podium said that there was a new code that was adopted last year that
Solar
changed
code.
it, so it's called.
And this is not
municipal.
that.
I know, but
Okay,
there's
because
still
I know
that
that's
word
contentious,
municipal.
And this is not that.
Right, but I just
No,
wanted
it's
to
a
say.
commercial
in the
solar, not
code.
municipal.
It was an opportunity, OSC, Opportunity Solar, Community Solar, or something like
But
that.
isn't
There
there
was a
something
change
that
of
says
zone.
municipal in there?
No,
That's-
it's commercial solar.
It was, commercial
Commercial.
utility scale
Yeah,
type solar.
solar,
That
yeah.
was changed last year in February, I think, of 2023.
But there's no code for municipal in there.
I don't believe so.
It does
but you
allow
own
that
West
as an
Hampton
opportunity zone,
Beach
because
owns
the
it
idea is
in a,
to.
hold on just a second, Janice. West Hampton Beach, I believe, owns that property in a proprietary interest, so it is a municipal piece of property for them. And that's what it is, it has been.
So there's a category for municipal already?
They own it in a proprietary interest, they're just the fee owner, it's not necessarily,
Zoned
I don't know how to
municipal.
say it.
It's
zoned
like
its
general,
own
it's owned
code
for
already.
general
When
purposes.
right, when a municipality owns something in a proprietary interest, they're allowed to use it for general municipal purpose as a function of what they do.
Same as we're allowed to do with the North Sea transfer station and the West Hampton transfer station.
That's, yeah, arguably, yes, it's a proprietary use of that property.
I didn't hear that statement. Would you repeat it?
It's a
Because
proprietary use of the,
down
so when a
here.
municipality owns it.
Yeah, I was talking to
Cindy?
Councilwoman
Oh,
Mackey.
sorry.
I said that that's what allows us to do the solar at North Sea and all the things that we've done on these properties because we own them.
Okay. You don't want to do this?
I don't, because I
'cause
heard,
you-
I heard it said that future properties that the town buys can be zoned municipal, and I don't think that's appropriate.
And that town board at that time would have to make that zoning change with public hearings
I don't
to
know. I just.
make it
I'm
municipal.
just
Yeah,
of
it
a mind
doesn't
of
automatically
get
If it
it
ain't
done
broke,
that
don't
way.
fix
That's
it,
true.
and if people know what's going on there, and we already own it, and we're already doing that there historically, I just,
But does the OSC
Yeah, no.
designation of, in the zoning code, does that conflict?
I actually thought OSC, and I could be wrong, but I thought OSC was the solar community opportunity zoning.
No.
What is
Open
OSC?
space conservation,
Okay.
So
which means that you do have limitations on what you can do at your transfer station.
I'd have to see what
to some
the.
degree.
Well, that's what I'm asking is if there is open space conservation designated in the code and something municipal is happening there, is that then antagonistic to the actual function of the parcel?
Yes.
May or may not be, and everything is fact and circumstance specific, like, if I knew what this, I didn't know what this was, if we maybe had a work session or could prepare for it, we could look at all the individual properties and see how we took them, and then see what the deed says and the underlying thing. I can't answer you.
Would you repeat that? You didn't see this on the agenda, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, correct. I saw it yesterday.
Okay. So you would need more time to prepare to?
Absolutely. This is
Okay.
a very
Also, take the
intense
properties.
discussion. This is not like a fly-by-night, just shoot from the hip. I would think you would want to research it more if you had questions. Do you want me to just answer from the hip?
Well, I didn't think a day, for preparation would be shooting from the hip,
You would have
Counselor.
to
and,
pull all of
you
these
know-
deeds, and you would have to look at how they were purchased.
Okay, so it sounds like you're recommending that we keep the underlying non-conforming
I
zoning.
am not making a recommendation like that at all. That's a policy consideration. I'm talking from a legal perspective. Councilman Iacilli just asked me how the OSC would affect each of these properties. I can't answer you right now, because I don't
I
have
would
that
like-
information.
I would like more research on it, and in all honesty, I mean, our
Okay,
our session said municipal zoning district discussion. It said nothing
And
about
we're
transfer
discussing
station
it,
properties,
so-
it said nothing about underlining zoning changes, so I would like more information. I don't think
Okay,
that's I don't think
so-
that's a,
There's no harm in getting.
What information can we, you want us
I
to
would
find the
like-
deeds?
The deed should probably be pulled just to see how they were purchased, like and when, and what the zoning was at the time of the purchase. And then if the property has gone through, if you want, this is in response to Councilman Iacilli's question. This is nothing to do with your,
Do you want to know what
Well,
other
it's not
towns
mine.
do for
That-
their
that's
municipal properties? Would that help
Yes, that
you?
would be a very good idea.
So we'll just look at what,
Like East
do other
Hampton,
towns keep their
yeah.
underlying zone, or do they have a?
Yeah,
zone?
that's
how
also
do
a
they
good
do that?
idea.
Yeah, that's a
And
great
East
idea,
Hampton
Travis.
and South.
more information is always better.
Okay, so we'll look at that and bring it back on. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It does.
That's great.
And
Not take
this
too much
changes
more of your
very
time.
little, and so, if there are strong feelings about, keeping the non-conforming use, then we'll keep the non-conforming use.
I mean, it was brought to the prior board last fall, and there wasn't really any buy-in to doing this then either, so.
Oh,
No
no,
one
there
really
was. It was just-
objected, but we
it
didn't
was-
want to put it on an agenda and not have the benefit of this board having a
Right.
chance to talk about it.
I think,
so-
if I may just
maybe there was,
insert
I
my,
I had a habit of
my-
doing that.
if I can just
Bring it here?
opine.
No. Doing
Yes,
things.
please, go
and-
ahead.
please opine.
Mike
I,
is gonna
I do think there's some value that Councilman Scavone is bringing to our attention, especially in terms of the continuity of the parcels here and how we designate them and the use of the properties, because there are concerns from the public when there's certain developments that, well, isn't the underlying zoning in conflict with what is being proposed? So I think in a lot of ways, this actually gets at specifying it, and I think there's some merit to looking into this a bit further, and I would be happy to see some of that information.
And Councilman, I can't let the comment pass because it's just too ironic that the former board didn't want to put something on without letting this board weigh in on it. I mean, that's kind of an ironic statement, so.
Me too.
No, I
There
mean,
were plenty of
me,
things
I'm
put on.
saying it was,
Way more concern that didn't get put on, that got put
no,
on
I'm
without
saying
this
the
board getting
previous board
consent.
did
Yeah.
review it. We didn't put it on the agenda for this board.
Yeah, I didn't move
And
it
now
forward.
we're
I
talking
misunderstood.
about it because the
Um,
supervisor
but I
likes to
do-
have the work sessions before the resolutions
Public
go on the
hearing.
I
agenda.
do.
But I do agree with
Thank you.
Michael,
So, I was,
just what you just said.
Well, thank
okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Janice.
thanks, Janice. And Kim,
So
too.
let us know when
Thanks,
it's
Kim.
ready, and we'll put it on another work session agenda. Okay, so that brings us to the liaison and supervisor updates. What's going on with all of you?
Transfer station's getting a couple new trucks, so hopefully they won't have any trouble this summer.
Oh, good. That's
And
good news.
Trucks, tractors and some new trailers. And then North Sea's going to, in the near future, I hope, have the obligation, to be able to weigh in on the sidewalks when they come out and talk to us again, which is very important to the community there.
Oh, you mean the presentation that we
Your
had?
presentation, yeah, they're supposed to be going out there. We haven't got a date yet.
Is that coming back to us?
No, I think their
No.
next step was to go to the
Well,
community.
Go to the community,
Okay.
so we're just waiting to hear
I think
from
that's what,
that.
I think people.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But then he said it's coming back to us.
I think a lot of people didn't understand that people still think it's our project, they don't
Yeah.
I
understand
know.
it's a county project.
Well, that's why I said that in the meeting, like,
Yeah.
this is, we give input.
Do you have
Nothing at
anything
this
to add?
time. Thank you.
So, we had a CAC meeting with the West Hampton community last evening. Last Thursday night, I attended a presentation by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that went over the FUD site, which is a formerly used defense site. That's the acronym, FUD. That's the West Hampton Gunnery, and part of that investigation includes the part of the West Hampton Estates. That was, I attended the second out of the 3 meetings that they held. And there's a lot of significant work that the U.S. Army Corps has to do. They are contacting residents right now, and they're canvassing the community. If residents are in what they call a safe zone, they fall into a category where the Army Corps has to dig and investigate for potential munitions. People have to be displaced temporarily. It's a pretty significant process. I encouraged the Army Corps to have an additional meeting, and they agreed to come to our CAC meeting last night, and we opened that up to the public. We did a significant outreach effort over the weekend, even though it was a holiday weekend. We tried to do as much as we can to get folks to know that there was an additional meeting that we were able to get on there and hopefully get more information to the people of the West Hampton community. So, so that's underway in the next 2 weeks. They're going to the U.S. Army Corps is getting underway with that project. And just a emphasis here is that this is a U.S. Army Corps led project. They are the lead agency on that. Just one final announcement about the Traffic Mitigation and Safety Task Force. We're going to be having that next week. We just met with County Executive Romaine. He met with all of you, and he's very excited for this particular project, as the County Road 39 study is also going to be underway to have our town work on traffic in tandem with the county, the critical artery, CR 39. This is going to be a great way to sort of synchronize our efforts. And it's April 10th at 4 p.m. It's going to happen in the boardroom. There's going to be an overview of what we imagine the goals of the task force to be. The task force is charged with writing a final report. And we will have a public portion as well for our meetings. The first meeting obviously will have a public portion as well, where we'll hear from members of the public, so that could help the members of the task force in their prioritization of various roads, various initiatives that need to take place in order for us to move forward on some of the mitigation efforts. So very much looking forward to that. And again, that's April 10th from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. right here. That's it.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Gonna get some good ideas going.
Yeah.
So I have Hometown Heroes banner program. The deadline to order banners is just over a week away on April 15th. Those will be hung from Memorial Day to Veterans Day in Good Ground Park. The Great East End Cleanup, an initiative, I think you used to oversee it.
I did, but Councilman Chris Nuzzi, I think, is the one who started.
Well, I've taken that on now, and that is April 27th and 28th. Residents can go to the town website and sign up and get bags and passes to the transfer station, and it's a great program, and there's a lot of people already signed up to do that. And then the Habitat for Humanity reuse program, you can drop off items at the North Sea transfer station on Wednesdays from 10 to 2, or the Hampton Bays transfer station on Fridays from 10 to 2, and that is usable household goods that they sell at their reuse store in Ronkonkoma, and the proceeds benefit Habitat for Humanity. And then one other thing, as Councilman Iacilli said, we did all have an opportunity to meet with County Executive Ed Romaine, and I did bring to his attention that we do need more help with our commuter connection. And, you know, there's a big issue with, I've heard from many employees, especially nurses at the hospital, they would love to take it. They can get there in the morning because they work 12-hour shifts, but there is no train at home at the end of the day for them. And another issue we have is the most utilized train on that is the one that gets people to work around 8:30, and that only departs from Hampton Bays, and there's limited parking there, and it's becoming a huge issue for Hampton Bays. It's becoming a huge issue for their downtown, because now they have the influx of parking for the commuter connection in the parking lots that are supposed to serve the business district. And we really need for that train, you know, with additional sidings, to leave from Spionk and West Hampton as well. They can get back there, but they can't leave from there, so it's a big problem.
We are starting an initiative called the South Fork Commuter Coalition to ask businesses and governments to sign on to this coalition to ask the MTA for more sidings. We're planning an event this springtime as well, as you probably know, and so those are in the works as well. So once we get those dates down, we'll let you know.
Yeah, it's very important.
Could I just add one more thing, just to a traffic mitigation task force? You will be able to attend via Zoom if you go to the Southampton Town website and search the little graphic that was posted. There is a Zoom link that you can go to sign up if you can't attend in person. So we're trying to open it up to everybody.
Do you have to sign up ahead of time, or will the link be public?
I think the link will be public if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, because I know some of them are webinars and you have to sign up advance.
Yeah, either way, go, check it out first. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. And we have also a new email address that all the members of not all of the members, but the chairs, as well as a couple of members of the task force, will have access to, including you, Supervisor. It'll be traffic at Suffolk County and Suffolk County, Southampton Town NY.gov. So yeah, we'll post all that information as we go along. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to that, getting the Long Island Railroad involved, getting more sidings.
They're developing their capital plan now, so we need to make give them a clear message that we want sidings and additional service on the Montauk branch.
We really need it. And the county executive said he stands behind us, and he'll come to any events that we organize and support. And he's very supportive of our water quality improvement initiatives as well. So we were very appreciative that he came out here to see us this week. And I also went to a Suffolk County Supervisors Association meeting this week, and one of the topics that we addressed was the solid waste removal from the island in light of the potential closure of the Brookhaven facility. And it's going to have to be a lot of thinking that goes into how we're going to arrange for that and what has to be done, but at least people are starting to talk about it. And then lastly, I'm having the first department head meeting next Wednesday at 10 in Town Hall, and just to meet with all the department heads and get a pulse on the needs for each department and to foster good communication. Looking forward to that. All right, well, if that's all we have, I move to go into executive session to discuss contracts, personnel, and obtain confidential legal advice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.